Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
And you say that you're still a member of the NBSSI board. You're a member of the Mediama Football Club board.
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
And you're chairman of the Minerals Income Investment Fund. Are you still a member, the chairman of that board?
Mr. Chairman, it stands dissolved by the president.
Now, is there anything more you wish to tell us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Mr. Chairman, I am George Murikuduka, as you said. I'm from Dompim Pepesa in the western region. It's about 15 minutes drive from Takwa to Dompim.
Dompim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Asin Dompim?
Wasa Dompim, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's different from Asin Dompim.
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
Are the two communities related in any way?
Probably by name.
Very well. Okay.
And I was born there in a kitchen. Yes, rightly so, Mr. Chairman. And I schooled at Dompim Methodists, starting my nursery from there. I moved to Gogo International School in Takwa, joined my father in the central region, Agyapong, where I had my primary education, then finished the basic education at Mankesim, then joined at the Saddle College, a school I so cherish. Then from there, joined Commander Teacher Training College. From there to University of Education, Winneba. From there, went to the UK to do my master's from the University of Plymouth. I became Municipal Chief Executive. From there, I also attained a certificate from the University of Oxford, UK, and University of Dundee, respectively. Mr. Chairman.
Just masters in what? Thank you, Chair.
Oil and gas management, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I was installed as a chief of Dompim in 2008 and abdicated my seat for politics. And I contested in 2016.
What was your stool name?
Nana Kwekun Nkrumah the Fourth.
And Nana something means what? Nana?
Sorry?
Nana?
Kwekun Nkrumah.
Kwekun Nkrumah?
Yes. The fourth.
Chairman is teaching me Nkrumah, the knife. Chairman, can I continue on his CV? Kindly, let me congratulate you as joint chairman in doing so. Come to page 2 of your CV. Somewhere you are very generous giving us information. In other instances, pardon my way, you are mean. Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines and Energy, Vice Chairman, January 2017 to 2021. Have 2021 ended? So come just beneath it. You are generous in saying 2017 to January 2021. This one, you just keep it opened. The E.
Yes.
And then Member of Parliament, January 7, 2017, January 7, 2021. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I should have stated the date, specific date.
So indulge chairman and do that. The 7th to 7th, is it accurate in reporting?
So, Mr. Chairman, I will crave your indulgence to make the necessary corrections.
And the Mineral Income Investment Fund, at least I'm familiar when the law was passed. So I should know when you were appointed to that position. When you just say 2019, January 2019, were you the board chairman? In January, were you the board chairman?
No, Mr. Chairman.
So specificity of date is important for the purpose of our record. And Chairman, I know that the nominee wants to share with us what committees of parliament does. Like Mines and Energy, he says, and I quote, Select Committee responsible for mining and energy sector. Is that all? And then 2, Select Committee on members holding of profit. Can I reconcile what you have said here with what is provided in Chairman's standing orders? If you want to report verbatim and accurately. So take note of that. And Chairman, the nominee is going to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. May I, with Chairman's indulgence, refer you to Article 268 of the 1992 Constitution, and it reads, any transaction, contract, or undertaking involving the grant of a right or concession by or on behalf of any person, including the government of Ghana, to any other person or body of persons, howsoever described, and this is my emphasis, Chairman, for the exploitation of any mineral, water, or other natural resources of Ghana made or entered into after the coming to force of this Constitution shall be subject to ratification by Parliament. What's your understanding of this? What onerous responsibility does it impose on you in assisting the Minister of Lands and Forestry to live to the letter and spirit of this constitutional provision? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, ratification of mineral rights have been a concern of this Parliament, and as a previous member of Mines and Energy Committee, I was part of insisting on the aspect of making sure that we ratify all concessions before they start operations. And I believe with your permission and your benevolence of getting me to support my sector minister, we will insist on the aspect of having ratifications done in Parliament before operations. And I believe the Honorable Chair is seeking to know whether or not it's prudent for mining companies, especially large concessions, to start operations before getting their concessions ratified.
Chairman, that's not there, because currently the nation is grappling with illegal mining, popularly known as galamsey. I may have my strong disagreement with the President and your team as to how you are fighting galamsey, but minimum requirement of the law come to Parliament. So for instance, if you want to know who has what mining right, where, lawful, illegal, legitimate, illegitimate, the duty is on the minister to apprise Parliament. So now you are fighting, you don't know who is here, you don't know who is there. You think that if we had respected the provision of the Constitution, we will not have a hold on it?
Mr. Chairman, as a member of Mines and Energy Committee in the last Parliament, we supported and engineered lots of the concessions to be ratified. And as I sit here, I know not less than 20 of the large-scale concessions have been ratified in Parliament, and we'll continue to insist that we get their concessions well ratified before starting operations. I think it's a good concern that we must all work around it to ensure that people interested in large-scale concessions mining must get their concessions well ratified.
Chairman, in this galamsey fight, we hear excavators seized, burned. We haven't heard of minerals being seized. Where is it? Have you come across that some mineral of gold have been seized somewhere? And normally, if that happens, where is it deposited?
Mr. Chairman, for what I know is the team that is fighting the illegal mining get to see the excavators, but not the gold. I've not seen or been availed to any situation where gold has been seized.
Chairman, I'm assuming that when they are running away and leaving the excavators, some may as well run and leave some of the resources which is in their possession. And we should, for more accountability and transparency, we should raise these questions. Are you saying that in all this fight, the state has not seized mineral resources, fiscal, and we need to know where is it? Because that's of value. And we should be interested in knowing that. Anyway, you are not there yet, so I can understand. I see your colleague at the ministry, Asasiwura. I hope he takes no offense. The Honorable Benito sitting by you. And you are talking about ratification of agreement. He came to Parliament in the November hours of the 7th Parliament and say, Parliament, ratify this number of agreements for me. And that's the difficulty. When you bring it to Parliament, only 24 hours for us rising. What meaningful, thorough work can we do in appreciating the value of the concession, environmental impact and its implications for the community? And for instance, I'd like to know your position. Should we license people to mine in the forest? Should we?
Mr. Chairman, as I speak with you, from 1900, we had about 8 million hectares of forest cover. And out of that, we reserved 1.6 million as an estate and then gazetted. And it is this 1.6 million that we've been protecting all this while. The remaining are for development purposes, for farming, and so on and so forth, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, the nominee sounds as if he lived 1900. You are as young as me here. In your reading, say that in your reading, Ghana had 1.6 million of what? Now proceed further.
Well noted, Mr. Chairman.
When you talk as if you are older than Chairman, I have to be called 1900. Where were you in 1900?
Right. That is well noted, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, yes, obviously, we need to see how we can take opportunities also from the natural reserves that we have. Mr. Chairman, my concern has always been how we can also create artificial forest. But mining prudently or professionally in forest reserves that are dedicated for development purposes are not against the law, or it's not against the law in actual sense. So I believe the onus is on us to ensure that we have a legislative framework that will guide the mining processes and make sure we mine according to.
Should we mine in forest reserves?
Mr. Chairman, it will depend on the area dedicated for the purpose.
So if a purpose is that go and mine in forest reserve, you see nothing wrong with it. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, if the area is earmarked for mining, I wouldn't see anything wrong.
Are forest reserve earmarked for mining, that you know?
Mr. Chairman, that is why I started by saying that yes, we have areas that are earmarked for mining and areas that are not, that are for or that are gazetted for
You are chairman of the board as chairman related to it, chairman Minerals Income and Investment Board. Were you part of the discussions leading to Agyapong and some of the interests of the MIF being transferred to Agyapong for onward submission to a special purpose vehicle? Were you part of the discussion and consultation?
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
What was your board recommendation on that, on Agyapong?
Mr. Chairman, I really had an opportunity of chairing the MIF, Minerals Income Investment Fund Board, passionately coming from that of a mineral generated community, Takwa in Swayim specifically. Mr. Chairman, having been there all this while and not seeing development, if you take into consideration the mineral wealth coming out of that constituency and what we add to the consolidated fund, and not seeing a tangible project with regards to minerals that we generate, and seeing the idea of coming up with a vehicle that was passed, in Parliament by the MIF Act to create kind of Agyapong. I was so excited because for the first time I saw the mineral royalty.
Were you sad when it didn't go through? You were excited when it was at that level. Were you saddened when it didn't go through? Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was sad in my sadness started in 2011 when a statement or budget statement was sent to Parliament, and in page 242, the minister then raised, the aspect of establishing a gold company like Agyapong, and that did not go through then. And so when I saw this government raising same gold company issue, I got
understand
excited.
That's a Dufour era.
Yes.
Now, Mineral Income Investment Fund, you want to monetize your royalties for mineral for a longer period, 25 years, to borrow 500 million US dollars or 1 billion US dollars. You come from a community where chiefs and the communities benefit from the sharing of the mineral income resources. What happened to them if Agyapong went through? You want to share an idea?
Mr. Chairman, that wouldn't also stop in any way. Mr. Chairman, if you take the MDF Act that established it and the Minerals Income Investment Fund Act, obviously the 75% that will go to Agyapong and the 20% out of the total receipts of royalties that will be dedicated to MDF. That 20%, Mr. Chairman, 50% will go to the administrator of stool lands, and 20% still will also be dedicated for the mining community scheme. And out of that, the 20% that is dedicated for the mining community scheme, 4% out of the 20% is also given to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources for mining operations, 13% is given to Minerals Commission for mining operations, and then 8% is given to Geological Survey, and 5% is for research purposes. So that still remains. And the 50% that is sent to the administrator of stool lands, 20% out of the 50% as taken as a whole, 20% is sent to the stool, that the chiefs occupy. And 25% is also sent to the traditional authority, the traditional area that the chief resides. And 50% of that is also taken to the respective mining districts for
It's noted. When Chairman was leading you on to introduce yourself, you resigned from the Mineral Income Investment Fund. Now you'll be Deputy Minister for Lands and Forestry. Is it your considered view that as Deputy Minister, should you serve on the Mineral Income Investment Fund? That may engender conflict of interest. Do you share that view?
Mr. Chairman, Minerals Income Investment Fund falls directly under Ministry of Finance.
Have you seen your ministries handing over notes? I disagree with you. I've read the handing over notes of the Ministry of Lands and Forestry. I agree with you that MIF, but the body created out of it is supposed to be supervised by the Ministry of Lands and Forestry. Those integrated aluminium, there were two institutions we created. Are they under your watch or the Ministry of Finance?
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, MIF falls...
Are you telling Chairman that you have appetite to remain at the board because you are pushing your hands that, oh, it's finance, so I'm at mines and energy. Mineral income is still about minerals, and you have some supervision over that. Will that engender conflict of interest?
Mr. Chairman, no.
So you will not excuse yourself if along the line you are asked to remain serving on the board. Is that what you are suggesting to this committee?
Mr. Chairman, I have the energy, I have the wherewithal to serve my people. If the President deems fit to appoint me to serve in any capacity, I'm ever ready to serve my people.
Even if that service means that there may be conflict of interest?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, what are your plans for forestry plantation development in Ghana? I know you'll be assisting the minister, but your personal orientation and thinking with forestry plantation development. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'm so excited that I've seen this young, vibrant lawyer, Honorable Samuel Bujinapo, who has started well as a substantive minister, running around making sure that the gaps within are fixed. He's initiated the aspect of even planting 5 million trees all over. And that in a way gives me an assurance that as a country, we need to think around how we can fix artificial forest reserves. And that is what we've not done over the years. We need to consciously create artificial forest zones. And that will be a cover that will replace the depletion nature.
How do you intend to create those artificial forest recover zones? How do you intend to walk us through?
Mr. Chairman, this is to create, land areas that will probably be earmarked for specific trees or species that we may be using in future, like teak and other commercial trees that we will be comfortable with. So,
have you complied with the filing of your taxes in accordance with Article 94 of the Constitution of Ghana?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Your assets as required of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The 8th Parliament?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You have in your possession receipts from the Auditor General that you've complied with it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What lessons, Municipal Chief Executive, conflict, if you were DC or MC for Bekwai, you'll be seeking to undermine Chairman in Bekwai because he's MP and you are DC, he applies for releases of his money. I hear, were you guilty of it? That when MPs ask for money, you are looking at where they belong in terms of releasing it and releasing it timely. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, if I had done that, I wouldn't have been here at all. I necessarily support to my then and make sure that we worked collaboratively, making sure that things that are brought to the district are well distributed with her consent and other people, the stakeholders' contributions. So the idea of...
But didn't you use the office of DCMC to topple an incumbent MP? Is that not the case?
Not so, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I yield to our colleagues to take our colleagues through.
Yes, Honorable Patricia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Dominic, congratulations.
Thank you.
For your nomination as the Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Honorable, it's very interesting when the minority leader was questioning you on the whereabouts of the gold, that whether any during the Galamsey fight. I've been thinking, how would you assist your men promote value addition to our gold? It looks as if we are not paying attention to where the gold are rather going, but we are just fighting. So how would you assist your minister to promote value addition to our gold threshold before exportation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it is important as a country to optimize our gold threshold, and considering when and how we export our gold must be of much concern to all of us. And as of now, our gold threshold is exported without any value addition. And going forward, I have seen that there has been an effort by the PMMC to establish a working relationship with an Indian company to establish a refinery in Ghana. And if that refinery, from the document I've cited, is done, then we can at least export our gold with some optimization. Mr. Chairman, looking at the world or globally, what we do in terms of refinery, you go to South Africa, we have the Rand refinery and the London Market Bullion Association. And the Bullion Association, I'm happy that PMMC has now established a relationship with the London Market Bullion Association, and they are also in touch with the Rand refinery in South Africa. If we collaborate well and meet the international standards and build this refinery, then we can optimize our gold. At least we should legislate to refine not less than 30% of our gold production before exportation, and that will go a long way in supporting this economy.
Thank you very much. My second question is on actually what has been done by Minerals Commission recently. The commission actually brought in some mining machines to aid legal mining. what are the prospects of the efficacy of those machines? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it is true that Minerals Commission recently commissioned a gold monitor machine. They locally call it gold catcher. Mr. Chairman, what that machine does is to collect or extract not less than 95% of gold. And Mr. Chairman, I had the opportunity of witnessing a simulation exercise they did, where indeed 95% of the gold was attracted or attracted or caught. Mr. Chairman, in that sense, if we use to support the small-scale mining sector, where people illegally rush around through concessions, get away, and just about 30, not more than 40% of gold is in a way gotten or attained, I believe it will go a long way in supporting these concessions where they can ably take their time mine, attract enough gold, and mine responsibly. So I commend Minerals Commission for such an action, and I commend the Sector Minister, Honorable Samuel Abujenapo, for taking such an initiative. That is to support the community mining concept, where government will be doling out enough gold monitor machines like what Minerals Commission just commissioned to, in a way, augment what to fill the gaps that are in the system, and that will curb the menace of galamsey.
Right, thank you. My final question. On September 25th, that is 2015, countries, including Ghana, adopted a set of goals to facilitate growth, end poverty, and ensure prosperity for all, as prescribed by the development agenda. Each of the goals has a specific target to be achieved over the next 15 years. Honorable Deputy Minister, I just want to tease your views on the development goals. What, in relation to your ministry, which of the goals relates to your ministry, and how far do you think the ministry have gone to achieve this by 2030, as stipulated? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the goals, they are kind of intertwined, and they relate to all the sectors. And if we collaborate well with the various sectors, you wouldn't even, or there wouldn't be the need to specify as to which of the goals that are related to your sector, because it runs through education, it runs through finance, it runs through agriculture, it runs through water resources, and obviously comes to lands and natural resources. So it's about the living and sustainability of our lives, and obviously there must be that collaborative effort in washing and tying in all the goals.
Yes, Suzu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Congratulations again, Honorable Nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My first question has to do with land guards in Ghana. I understand perfectly that you are going to be a deputy minister who would be assisting the substantive minister. There are several reports suggesting that one of the biggest challenges for land acquisition in Ghana today, particularly in the urban centers, is the problem of land guards. And we've had some of them killing innocent and rightful owners. We have them intimidating landowners, particularly in the new communities developing. What are your views on land guards, and how can we as a people overcome this challenge? And what would you do as a deputy minister in support of the substantive minister to nip this at the back?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, land guard has been a bane. It has been a challenge to each and every Ghanaian, and I believe is on this premise that Parliament, the 7th Parliament, obviously anxiously passed Act 1036 in 2020, and this act now criminalizes land guards, and I'm happy that that act has been, passed and has addressed that land guard issue. Mr. Chairman, you would also bear with me that obviously double sale of land has, in a way, brought up all this kind of land guard issue, and the act continuing criminalizing that aspect of menace is also a good call by criminalizing it in the Act 1036. So taking into consideration the Act, we need to enforce the laws that are enshrined in the Act. And going with that, I believe with the support of my able minister, who has consciously making sure that even lands that are vested in government or in the states are divested as the law or the act enshrines, and that's also a good call. So I will support him graciously if you give me the mandate, support him to ensure that the act that was passed in the last parliament are really run through.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, again, the New Patriotic Party promised Ghanaians that it will fully decentralize Lands Commission and land services to the district level. Do you know the status of this promise? And what would you do to facilitate the achievement of this promise, even as a deputy minister, because of the various challenges people have in Ghana, just having services, land services, registering their lands. Sometimes you go to the Lands Commission to do official search, and it will take you more than 6 months before you get results, coupled with several other challenges. I believe that if we properly decentralize these services, it will be more effective and many more Ghanaians will benefit more. What would you do to facilitate this promise?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Looking at the Land Use and Spatial Planning Regulations 2019, I believe if you run through, you realize that decentralizing our land is of much concern to this country, and I'm happy that the minister himself, Honorable Samuel Agyapong, has started so well. He was just with he was in my region recently to visit the Lands Commission there. I joined him because I'm from Western region, and the leader there testified that it was the first time a minister, a substantive minister, was visiting their outfit. He indicated right at the ceremony that he was going to ensure that we decentralize, the land acquisition system, and that, in a way, he's anxiously embarking on. So he started, as you asked, he started on it, he's working on it, and he will ensure. And I will, with your support and your graciousness, I will assist him to carry on with that mandate that you suggested.
Honorable Chair, the very last question borders on Galamsey and the current policy direction of government banning excavators. Many have criticized this position of government on grounds that we still have a number of district assemblies who are in need of these excavators to just grade their roads or desilt their choked gutters. What is, I'm asking for your personal view on this issue of banning of excavators. And do you think that it is a sustainable policy to keep banning excavators when these excavators could be put to productive use?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I support the school of thought that says extraordinary situations call for extraordinary measures. Mr. Chairman, as I speak with you, if you go to Indonesia, where other countries have engulfed the area with illegal fishing, they've started sinking most of the fishing boats and burning them. If you go to the island state of Palu, they are burning all the fishing boats there. Mr. Chairman, they could have used this fishing boat for other purposes. Mr. Chairman, if we don't take care, there would be a day that you go out, come back to see someone. Now technology has developed. They can use even 3 days to put up a structure. They put a structure in front of your door and they tell you that it's a structure. There's no need pulling them down or putting some structures on a waterway. They tell you it's a structure. You can use it for clinics and other purposes. So we can put structures in a waterway, and those buildings need not to be pulled down. Mr. Chairman, looking at the destruction being meted to our river bodies, I believe, and caution upon caution that have been given by government, I believe these illegal miners must listen to government and stop mining in our river bodies, and rather stop complaining about the burning of excavators. I will, in a way, ensure that if an excavator is spotted in an illegal zone where the perpetrators leave out the keys to these excavators, obviously the military could drive them to the nearest police station. But there are situations the military will get there, they have removed parts of the excavators control board, and these excavators are very heavy. You cannot just in any way carry them or put them on a payloader without getting them sparked. So they just remove some parts and run away, think with a view of coming back at night to use such excavators. If you are protecting the interests of this country and the heritage of this country, I believe it will be prudent to get that machine demobilized.
Mr. Chairman, a quick follow-up on that. Your explanation makes a lot of sense, but the only reason why I disagree is the fact that if the people intend to come back at night to work, proper policing would require that they would mount surveillance and still try to arrest these people together with the keys or those motherboards. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is that we cannot fight illegality with illegality. The process we are adopting now is sine qua non to mob justice. Once you see somebody breaking a law, you can also break the law to deal with the person. And that is a bit more dangerous for our democracy. And so I believe that this is a policy, this burning might be reviewed by government. So if you ever get the chance and you get the opportunity, I think I'm urging you to urge government to review the burning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm also using this platform to urge all those who have interest in mining our river bodies to stop immediately. And that with the intention of fighting this illegality with bipartisan approach by the sector minister, and with the thinking of also reviewing, amending the Mining and Minerals Act. Probably we can consider factoring the burning issues in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes.
Just a follow-up question on extraordinary situations calling for extraordinary measures. Our Constitution makes provision for extraordinary situations. Under those situations, you declare a state of emergency. Are you sure the activities of these illegal miners really creates such an extraordinary situation? If it is, why don't you call a state of emergency under which you can now do the things that you are doing?
Mr. Chairman, it's a illegal mining and a situation where there will be the need for us to import water from neighboring countries like Cote d'Ivoire. Today I saw a video, a pipe-borne water that was so dirty. I was so sad. If we don't take care, we might create a bleak situation for the future where we may be importing water into this country. If that situation is rearing its face, ugly face, obviously it is something that we must be worried about. And I believe taking into cognizance and the aspect of extraordinary measures, I will place that one in the purview of extraordinary measures. But it hasn't gotten to where a state of emergency could be declared, Mr. Chairman.
So it's not an extraordinary situation.
Mr. Chairman, depending on how probably you value it, but I see it as an extraordinary situation where we get into a position where we may import water into this country. Water is life, and if we are going to lose our life out of these operations, obviously it's an extraordinary situation, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Honorable Obama.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, my brother.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable, your minister was with us about 3 months ago, and I specifically asked him this question on the ratification of over 300 timber utilization contracts that the EU is threatening Ghana if we don't ratify them. They wouldn't allow companies to export timber to the European Union. I'm sure you're aware of this pending issue with the European Union. And I want to find out from you whether you assist the minister in pushing through these pending contracts so that our brothers and sisters within that space wouldn't have to suffer any penalties or ban from the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if you take the Timber Resource Management and Legality Licensing Regulation 2017, most of the concerns that you are raising are well spelled. And as you rightly put, I will obviously support my minister to address these concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, secondly, Nominee comes from one of the richest areas in the country. And it's not in doubt. You have all the manganese, you have the bauxite, you have the gold, and what have you. You have bonsa, Thai, and a lot of resources in your area. But there seems to be a lot of underdevelopment in that area. If you travel on the Agyapong-Takwa Road, which Parliament approved a facility for last year, for that 88-kilometer stretch, I want you to tell us, as a committee and as a country, and to the good people of Wassa, what you are going to use your new offices to assist the area to unearth its potential, because it is the richest hub, one of the richest parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it seems the honorable member knows the terrain of my constituency very well. Yes, it is true that we have in gold fields, we have in Anglo Gold, we have in Ghana Manganese. They are all seated in my constituency. Yes, it is true that as I speak with you, the road network there is highly deplorable. Obviously, a facility has been raised, Parliament has approved, and the minister in charge of roads and highways has also assured me, and he has reassured me, that very soon contractor will be on site. The road network is our concern, and the people of Takwa will be happy to see a contractor on site, reconstructing Takoradi to Takwa and the town roads of Takwa. Yes, His Excellency the President has personally indicated to me that he will make sure that the developmental agenda of Takwa is properly restructured in his tenure, and I believe and counting on his prospect and vision, I know Takwa will be compared to Johannesburg going forward, and that is the hope of all of us, because the moment our road network is asphalted and worked on, Takwa will be a place to visit. If you just look at a landscape and other prospect, what is of our concern is our road network, and I'm happy that you outlined some of the challenges we are facing, but obviously, and that is why we need the Agyapa, and that is why we need the Minerals Income Investment Fund, because all this while, as you've already testified, we've been mining over the years, more than 200 years. What do we have to show? So if now a facility, a royalty, is ring-fenced to develop the mining communities, I will obviously and seriously advocate for that facility.
Obviously, you want your roads to be like Asawasi. Good luck. But let me turn your attention to Article 267. 2677 and 8 of the Constitution. Your roads will one day become like that of Asawasi. Don't worry. Honorable Muntaka, he wants Takwa roads to be like Asawasi roads.
He should manage to get it to be quiet first.
Honorable, Article 2677 and 8, I've seen Nananum behind you, that the administrator of stool lands and regional lands commissions shall consult with the stools and other traditional authorities in all matters relating to the administration and development of stool land, and shall make available to them all relevant information and data. Are we complying with this constitutional imperative? And if not, what are you going to assist them, especially with the information and data for them to be able to know what is happening within their traditional areas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, interestingly, all the divisional chiefs from my constituency specifically are here. Because of space, they couldn't join us here, but we haven't some seated right behind me, Mr. Chairman, and that's the question they asked when they came here, asking me about how we can deepen that relationship between administrators of stool lands and their outfit. And that assurance has already been given to them that we're going to, find ways of asking more questions. Because one of them raised an issue that, in a way, pricked my heart. Now, Honorable, yes, we do receive what is due us, but we don't tend to ask questions. We don't tend to see how even the money gets to us, and we would love to get access to those who even get these monies to our coffers. So that relationship must be well built. I know they do disburse to them accordingly as per the MDF Act, and I will ensure and support my sector minister to deepen the relationship they already have.
Very well. Giselle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, congratulations.
Thank you.
Looking at your CV, you did some research on the impact of corporate social responsibility on oil-producing communities. Case study of Shell Nigeria. Can you tell us? This was in 2009, 2010. Tell us about the impacts of corporate social responsibility by the mining companies in your constituency.
Yes, I will say that with the corporate social responsibilities, I will commend Goldfields for what they have been doing. They are now constructing about 50-seater stadium in my constituency as part of their corporate social responsibilities.
50-seater, 50.
50,000 seater, 50,000 seater. Sorry,
capacity.
Mr. Chairman, 50,000 seater capacity stadium in my constituency, and that is huge. And they have been supporting in terms of scholarships. They have been supporting in terms of road construction. They constructed a road from Takwa, Bogoso Junction to Damai, and that is, and our and Anglo Gold is also consciously doing same. There are gaps that we need to encourage them to do more. Ghana Manganese, in a way, also trying to do a bit. We have established kind of relationship with them where they are anxiously and consciously supporting their communities, but we need to deepen the relationship. And looking at the argument that they mostly say that yes, they pay taxes to government and they expect government to also develop the area. Yes, it's of positive concern. But government has also been doing well in, it's debatable though, in development agreements that was signed with Goldfields, for instance, that reduced in a way their corporate tax, from 35 to 32, declining rate depending on the gold price, and royalty also from 5 to 3, depending on the gold price, and so on and so forth. These are arrangements that government has been doing with the mining companies to ensure that they also commit to the corporate social responsibilities.
Thank you. So at least you're not paradise, but you're not that bad after all.
Obviously so, but our road, major concern is our road. That is our major concern. And I believe the people of Takwa in Swahili will be happy to hear me say that our roads are not in good condition.
All right, thank you. Let me move on to sand winning. Sand winning is an issue, I think it cuts across a lot of constituencies. Yes, the construction industry needs sand. There's not much we can do about it. These are traditional materials that we use for construction. But what deliberate efforts would the ministry make to ensure that even though sand winning is an activity going on, after that there is either reclamation or another measure to make sure that whatever areas have been mismanaged, let me put it that way, because it can be a bit rough, at least there are actions being taken to either reclaim or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, sand winning is also a challenge. And I believe one thing that we need to do is to beef the inspectorate division of the Minerals Commission. That we've not done much as a country. And, having studied a bit about the Minerals Commission, I think it's time for us to beef up the inspectorate division of the Minerals Commission to enable them, go around, inspect areas that we have some of these challenges to obviously address them. Yes, we must also consciously demarcate areas where we can say, yes, these are areas that you can do your sand winning activity, and that hasn't also been done as I speak with you. So we need to consciously educate people as to when and where they can have sand for other development purposes. So it's good we collaborate and bipartisan approach. We find ways to address some of these menace in the country.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. So I'm hoping that you would champion this cause for a lot of constituencies that have this issue with sand winning.
Obviously with your support, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next is about quarrying. It's a similar thing to sand winning, but quarrying has a bit more structure to it. And yet it is still not totally a gray area, but could also benefit from a bit more, from much better policies, if I can say, towards quarrying, stone quarrying. There have been a few cases in my constituency where, from the middle of nowhere, out of the blast, a stone just drops in the middle of people's communities. And there have been cases where, just unfortunately, they did not hit somebody directly to injure somebody, But what would be the framework, if I can say legal or otherwise framework, to make sure that extractive industries for construction, the sand winning, as we've spoken about already, and the quarrying would have a bit more, much better framework to operate. So there's a win-win and an acceptable situation for both the communities nearby and the operators of the quarries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as for a legislative framework, we have very comprehensive legislative framework to cater for some of these things. It's not only even stone, brown clay, and other areas like even salt. How do we optimize, some of these natural resources? Yes, I believe we must consciously also make sure that we set up an authority, as my minister already outlined before this August House, that he will ensure that salt authority is established to dedicate that white gold to benefit this country. I just had opportunity of going through some documentation for Minerals Income Investment Fund, where they were going around to monitor, have a database of all the quarries that we have. And it will interest you to know that people are flouting laws. People are even not paying royalties that is due this country. And we have, in a way, rejected and not taking interest in that aspect. And getting your nod, I believe I'll support my minister to ensure that quarry is, in a way, well-mined, and what is due this country is also paid. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That means responsible quarrying, mining, so on and so forth. Last question. 5 million trees to be planted from 11th June.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What's the system in place that after the planting, those 5 million would be sustained?
Mr.
Who is going to be responsible for that activity? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy that the honourable member has raised this issue. Mr. Chairman, we consciously, in a way, sensitizing all agencies, all departments, and all stakeholders to be part of this planting process, and not only to be part of the planting process, but also to nurture it to an appreciable growth level. I was fortunate to join Yana to inform him about 11th June interest of planting 5 million trees, which he accepted, and also gave his support to that effect, and he indicated that he's going to, in a way, talk to his subjects to be part of the planting process, and also make sure they water the plant to a position where one day they will say, yes, on the 11th of June, we planted this, probably a year after this, where it has gotten to. So I know each and every member of parliament is going to be part of, you must be in your constituencies to also conscientize your constituents to be part of this planting process. And one thing I advocate for is not to, in a way, have it as a 9-day wonder, but do it as a ritual, annual ritual, where we'll be planting all over, especially in our schools. And Ghana will be a place to visit in 2-3 years if we dedicate our spirit, dedicate our commitment towards planting of trees.
All right, Honorable William before.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Duka, congratulations for your nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm very happy because I'm also a Takwa boy.
I didn't know about that.
Yes,
I'm happy to hear that, Mr. Chairman.
I stayed in Takwa for almost 4 years because of the work of my dad. We used to stay on Government Hill.
Interesting.
Yes. So I know Takwa Dompim and all those places very well. Well, my first question will be on the Land Act in Parliament late last year, and it's voluminous, quite big. And if you interact with people, most people don't seem to appreciate what is in the Act. Of course, it's new, and I was telling my daughter that probably I could spend more time on the Act if I was writing exams and I'll be examined on it. But as practitioners and for those who have to apply the Act every day, every day, don't you think the ministry should make efforts to educate the populace on what this whole Land Act is about, especially the salient ones, which you can give some aspects of it, but I think that, I don't know whether you've discussed it, but I think for your ministry, there should be a major effort to break down this act so that people will not just be grabbed and sent to jail for flouting the sections of the act, but indeed we all understand and appreciate it, from Lands Commission to all those who deal in land.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I believe it's a good observation. The Act itself is a comprehensive Act, very voluminous, obviously, and would need much education on. It's a new Act, and people don't know about. Taking into consideration even Act, the Section 270, and respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I read, the President shall, on the recommendations of the Lands Commission, authorize the divesting of any land which prior to the coming into force of the Constitution was vested in the President by any law. So divesting land to the rightful owners is an opportune kind of period where people must take advantage of. And this has not gone down well. I think looking around and nosing around, and people even don't know about it. And as you've rightly, I will support my sector minister to embark on vigorous education on this act that was ably passed by the 7th Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The next one will be the MIF Act. To what extent would you say that the payment of royalties to the traditional authorities have been affected?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I indicated earlier that this has not in any way compromised the distribution of royalties due the chiefs of the mining communities. Interestingly, most of the royalties that are dedicated or earmarked for them they are now receiving them periodically and as expected and on time. Mr. Chairman, I indicated earlier that 20% out of the MIF is given to MDF, and out of the 20%, 50% is to stool lands, and that goes all the time. And another 20% out of the 20% as a whole that is given to Minerals Development Fund is also dedicated for the community mining scheme, and 4% is given to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, 13% to the Minerals Commission for mining operations, 8% to the Geological Survey, and 5% is for research purposes. So Nananum do receive these royalties, and there hasn't been any challenge at all. And now that it has been regulated, well regulated by the MIF Act, I believe Nananum going forward will be happy.
Thank you. Oh, I thought you were done.
I just wanted him to try to give us the comparative advantage of community mining over any other forms of mining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, looking at the unemployment rate in this country and how people tend to mine irresponsibly, I believe it is prudent for government to introduce this community mining and map out areas where we can use for this community mining. The idea is also for government to support them with mining equipment. And I'm happy recently Minerals Commission adored the commodity monitor that tend to, in a way, fetch not less than 95% of our gold. And that must be well planned and well dedicated for the community mining. The community mining concept is a good one, and with your support and with your approval, I will support my minister to embark on a massive community mining implementation project where the youth will be employed, because unemployment could be of national security concern, and if that is not addressed, we may be found wanting as a country. And using the community mining as a model and taking into consideration what happened in South Africa, where there's a Mazama period where they were fighting the small-scale mining and had to find ways of also creating employment there by introduction of a similar kind of project like community mining. It's in a way fed into their plan, and now the Zamazama has reduced astronomically, and going with the tangent of community mining concept in Ghana, I believe it will help us as a country.
Very well. Who hasn't spoken much today? Okay. I don't know why I got her.
I'm happy that Chairman has recognized me as somebody who hasn't spoken much today. I've spoken, but not much. A couple of issues with your CV, which I think has been extensively discussed. Maybe you should look at some of the very good CVs that have come to us. If you look at your education, that is number 3 on your CV, you indicate the years, then you mention a program, and then the university. We don't know what program it is, whether it's a certificate, it's a degree. So 2019 is an executive certificate on oil, gas, and mining governance. So that's a executive certificate. Then 2018, applied petroleum economics and policy. What is that? Is it a certificate? Is it a degree? Upstream financial modeling, University of Dundee. Is it a certificate? Is it a degree? 2017, gas sales and purchase agreements. Is it a certificate? Is it a degree? Or so on and on, similar things. So you need to be clear what it is, whether it's a certificate, it's a degree, a master's program, whatever it is, you need to indicate. And then others were raised by Honorable Haruna. But when we come to 7, conferences, capacity building programs attended, you just mentioned offshore technology conference where, Global Petroleum Show, GPS, where is that, what is that? Indaba Mining Conference, where, what was it about? Small scale mining workshops. Where are the workshops? Community facility workshop. So some more detail. some more detail will help somebody trying to track your status and how far you've come in terms of.
Well noted, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, these were to, in a way, economize space. So I will make sure for specific, notices, I'll get them corrected. Thank you.
Now, I'll focus on just 2 issues. One is illegal mining and the way that we have approached it. I take a position that wherever there's gold and people are poor, they will definitely go for the gold. And that's a historical fact. Anywhere in the world, wherever there's gold, if it's on the bed of a river, if it's under this building, this committee room. And chairman does the calculation and thinks that the cost of extracting the gold, after he has extracted the gold, he can pay off and there will still be a margin. He won't mind extracting the gold and then paying the difference. That's a natural tendency. And so we must rationalize the conduct of our people trying to dig gold wherever they can find it. I, as a former Minister for Environment, dialogued with these so-called illegal miners. And they rather think that the problem is coming from your ministry. I mean, the ministry you are going to. That's the Minerals Commission and the ministry. You make it difficult for them to get license. People at the Minerals Commission encumber sites when they have data that shows that there's likely to be gold there, either prospecting licenses, exploration licenses, and then they are not carrying out, mining activity to give the youth jobs. You call them illegal, but then they will give you receipts showing that they have paid a reclamation fee to the district assembly. Some colleagues are noted because they know this as a fact. So they are not unknown to the system. So instead of this approach that classifies them as illegal, lawbreakers, and etc., would we see a different attitude that is more constructive and engaging these actors instead of how we are treating them, burning their equipments and etc.?
Mr. Chairman, I agree that where there is gold, we must mine, but mine responsibly. Mr. Chairman, yes, someone was telling me maybe tomorrow, because of technology, we might not even need gold at all. We might even find something else. So why are we not mining and getting the gold now if the value is high? But what we must be mindful of, the destruction that we are meting out to nature. Yes, we must mine. How do we support them to mine? The licensing regime. Because I didn't understand why one must be in Takwa and apply for a license, and the license has to be approved from the center, in Accra. That will obviously be bureaucratically challenged, and he may not have that patience to wait till that license is done. So why are we putting that burden on the minister alone? And my minister has already indicated his commitment to ensure that the licensing regime is decentralized. And I believe if that is done, we'll go in a long way in a way leveraging some of these challenges. So yes, licensing is part of the problem, but also the aspect of not consciously educating people as to the need for us to mine responsibly has also been a challenge, and also not supporting them, because we have been criminalizing this sector all these years. From all regimes, stripping them, handcuffing them, imprisoning most of them. We've still not, in a way, kept the menace totally. So how do we then, going forward, make sure that has been really resolved? So I think with the support of my minister, giving him kind of commitment and practical support, I think, yes, one, we need to decentralize the licensing regime. Two, we need to consciously get these people, the miners, in the decision-making process. Let's be engaging them. Three, government has to support them also with technological know-how, with mining implements, and all other aspects that they will need. Like you have a concession, you call it, if it is a community mining, you support them with field inspectors, mining engineers, you support them with all the approved mining implements. They make sure that they have their tax, on their necks before reporting at work. They know that they need to follow all the international protocols and international best practices at the mining site. They pay their taxes. They are checked periodically to make sure they follow the protocols. I believe this will be an industry where we will be proud of. And with your support and your approval, I'll support my minister to ensure that we do that.
Now, if our main concern is with the environmental issues, why don't will you consider amending the law so that the EPA can engage any actor in the mining process, irrespective of whether the person has a prospecting license, an exploration license, or a mining lease? Because you see people engage in mining in a community. There's an environmental protection agency office in that zone who could easily go there and then assist them, direct them, monitor, and make sure that they are complying with all the standards. But the EPA will not, because the person doesn't have a license. So they will not. They will be there. They have the capacity is on the ground. After capacity is on the ground, the EPA, they can go there, they can say, look, you want to mine, there's gold on the bed of this river. There's a technology for taking gold out of the bed of the river in a way that doesn't really compromise the river. This is how it should be done. And monitor and make sure that they do it. And then if there's any reclamation to be done, that they do the reclamation. But EPA will not, because the law doesn't allow them to do that. Is this something that we should look at?
Mr. Chairman, with mining, EPA has a role, because if you're a small-scale miner and you're going to mine, you need to also secure a license from the EPA. The EPA must give you that approval. So they also have their specific role that they play. They get to the concession, and there are legalities that you need to also follow with regards to EPA. Water Resource Commission also has a role.
I get the direction, but the point I'm making is that from all that you have said, over the regimes, these mining activities, we've all not been able to stop them. Based on the philosophical position I stated in the initial stage, that no matter what you do, if there's gold anywhere, people will take it. They will take it, forget it. And they'll find a way of taking it. You can send soldiers, they know the soldiers will go back in a few weeks' time. They even know the minister will be reshuffled. If he does so well, the president may send him to foreign affairs. So when he goes, he will come back to the site. You get the point? They will always go for it. So instead of sending soldiers to go and burn the equipment, I'm saying that send EPA to go and show them how to do it properly and monitor them. And then EPA will not go because the law says they cannot go. Why don't we amend the law to just say, look, EPA, whether somebody has a mineral license or not, if you see anybody engaged in mining anywhere, take responsibility, monitor them, show them how to do it properly, and then we will deal with the rest later.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think Minerals Commission has that mandate. If you come to my constituency, yes, we have an office for representing Minerals Commission, and they do that, and they collaborate with EPA. There has been that collaboration. I believe we have enough legislative framework to address all these challenges. It's the kind of implementation and consciousness, making sure they are done. That is the way to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Last one is about mining communities benefiting from mining operations in their area. And I think that you have been discussing that as a focus that you personally will bring to the work that you will be doing at the ministry. How will you do that? I think you thought that the Mineral Investment Fund is one way. You think that Agyapong is one way. But Agyapong really is not going to benefit the immediate community where the mineral royalties, the mining activity is taking place. Agyapong is collateralizing the state's royalties, which will be used for national development. I don't think it is only for the mining communities. We want to do a road to Tamale, and we can use Agyapong as a vehicle to collateralize our royalties, take $1 billion, pay the contractor to do a road for us, not necessarily to the mining community or build schools in the mining community. Specifically, what kind of interventions can ensure that those in mining communities benefit? I say so because, Chairman, you go to a mining concession, and inside the concession, you drive around, you think you are living in the UK or in America. It's so well planned. The drivers drive according to a given speed limit. The greenery, they have an excellent golf course. It's paradise. And immediately outside the walls of the mining community, you find it like a shanty town. So, and you have a district assembly of DCEs, you have, people elite there. They are not able to replicate the example of the concession area just immediately outside the borders of the concession and make life as good for everybody. So the question is, how can you, sitting there as Deputy Minister for Natural Resources from a mining community, how will you ensure that we see similar development just outside the walls of the concession? Because it's the good life that we're all looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, interestingly, MIF is not only dedicated for Agyapa. That has been the impression out there. Yes, MIF is also to see to the development of these mining communities and also to build local champions in the industry. MIF is only seeding out about 16 of those mining companies to deal with the Agyapa issue. And we have more than 40 or 50 concessions in this country. And those, or that revenue that will be accrued could be used to develop those mining communities. And I agree with you, and not only that, we can extend it to areas where we don't even mine and develop. The owners is to see this country developed, and that is all that we want to see. And you also indicated about Agyapa that, yes, they are going to roll out and on the back of their balance sheet get somebody to largely develop or develop this country. Yes, on the back of the balance sheet, what we also intend to do is to establish large concessions like Gold Fields, like Anglo Gold, to get people employed, deepen the local content. South Africa is developed because of those indigenes owning most of the large-scale concessions. So how do we also build local champions in the industry? By using this Agyapa concept and that of MIF. So it's good you've raised it, and with your support, because we want to build a bipartisan kind of mining industry where your concerns will be well taken.
Yes, I'll come here, then I'll come to the leaders.
Honorable Duka, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we're all talking about gold, and issues related to Galamsey. But Honorable Duka, you know, there are a lot of leakages so far as the export of gold is concerned. And I am aware the PMMC is the company responsible for that. Now, I mean, it has been reported widely that we're losing a lot of revenue from our gold exports as a result of the non-repatriation of whatever money is made from the exports of gold. And so in 2017, CEO of the PPMC admitted that Ghana lost about 2.6 billion US dollars as a result of the non-repatriation alone. And then this became the subject of some investigation. I don't know how that ended, but you're going to a ministry, I believe, which has something to do with the PMMC. what would you do to deal with this unfortunate development, which is depriving us of a lot of money? The example Honorable Ayaraga cited about how developed mining communities are in South Africa, and when you compare that to your own backyard, Takwa and Obuasi, I mean, you can't compare. It's a shame. I believe it has to do with the non-repatriation of revenues accruing from the export of our gold. What would you do to deal with the situation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I will support my minister to ensure that we bridge this gap through PMMC. We need to track some of these deficiencies and make sure they are addressed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, let me take you back to the issue of the banning of excavators. And I was not surprised that my good friend, Honorable Duka, supports the view espoused by the President that if you are unhappy with the banning of an excavator, go to court. But Honorable Duka, I want to refresh your memory on the position of the law with regards to the handling of excavators. I'm referring to the Minerals and Mining Act, Amendment Act 2019. Then you go to Section 99, the offenses creation provision. And to be very specific, Sections 8, 9, and 10. Those provisions deal with the seizure of equipment used for illegal mining. And then the 9 specifically says when the equipment has been seized, the court would make an order for forfeiture of the equipment to the state. Then the 10 now says when the forfeiture has been made to the state, within 60 days, the sector minister shall allocate the seized equipment to a government agency or institution, for that particular institution or agency to own it. So, Honorable Duka, the law is very clear. Now, in the face of the clear provisions of the law, do you still stand by the claim or assertion that we should ban because of the times we find ourselves in, even in the face of this law?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it is true that the law has all these dictates, but what the law did not stipulate is where the security agencies get to the concession and part of the machine is removed. The illegal miners come back at night to work with the machine. What do you do with the machine? I believe that is a gap that we need to address, and when, with your support, when I get there, that is where I will support my minister to see the needed amendment to be made. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, my last question. Honorable Duka, I've watched videos of the Operation Halt, where you see soldiers point rifles at Shangfang machines located right, in a stream, right? So they aim at it and shoot. Now, when they shoot, the oils that are contained in the Shangfang are deposited right in the running water, and thereby polluting the rivers in the process. I thought the whole idea behind the destruction of mining equipment used for illegal mining purposes was to rid our water bodies of pollutants. Right, so some have argued that this very method of fighting the menace, which comes with galamsey activities, is in itself a way of polluting our water bodies. You're going to the ministry, that is the lead ministry, which is fighting against galamsey. What would you do? First of all, what is your view of this matter, and how do you intend to address it when you get to the ministry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, when the honorable pointed his hand at me, I was alarmed because I thought he was going to shoot. That's by the way. Mr. Chairman, nowadays, videos are doctored. Some have ways of, in a way, impressing people wrongly. And some of these things, when honorable member, get to the sector minister's attention, I believe some of these things could be addressed. And let's all fight this menace together. It's not to do and let's see approach. Let's all find ways of collectively fighting this galamsey menace.
Thank you. Deputy, and then you. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I want to ask the nominee, did I hear you say that the stadium built in Takwa is 50,000 capacity?
Yeah, rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
Are you sure?
Mr. Chairman, that is information before me, but because this house is a house of record, I'll probably come back with the correct figure.
Because that would have been the biggest stadium that we'll have in our country. In actual sense, it's 10,000 capacity. It's not even up to 15,000.
Mr. Chairman, I need to check that. I think I will side with you. It's not up to, but I think it's around 12,000 thereabouts.
So, so if you say it's around 12,000, why do you choose to tell the country that it's 50,000? It's 10,000. It's a 10,000.
Mr. Chairman, 10,000. I wouldn't be surprised if it is 10,000.
So I hope that you try and get your facts right.
At a point, you can configure figures and get confused with it.
I hope it's not the same as your Bible quotation.
Interesting.
Mr. Chairman, I know our colleague is a board member of the Mineral Investment Fund, right?
Mr. Chairman, this Minerals Income Investment
Mineral
Fund.
Income Investment Fund, right?
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
You are a member. So I want to believe that you might have read from first cover to the last cover of Agyapong and understood it. Should I assume that you are very conversant with the Agyapong agreement?
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, good. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from him the scope of the Agyapong. What was the scope?
Mr. Chairman, if I understood the question right, Mr. Chairman, Agyapong is to serve as a private company owned by MIF, is to also leverage on royalties and optimize value addition. Agyapong is to run on the back of its balance sheet to get a big company set up in Ghana and also develop the mining community specifically. Agyapong is to also raise shares and be listed on the London Stock Exchange. It's also to be domiciled in New Jersey. And Agyapong is to, in a way, have a royalty revenue stream well ring-fenced and well monitored and tracked.
Chairman, the scope that I'm talking about here is the scope of the resources that we are using for this agreement. You know that it was, or the way it was structured when it came to the House, was to virtually cover almost all the 48 mining leases that are currently in operation.
Mr. Chairman, Agyapa is to cover 16 of the mining leases.
It's only covering 16 areas, which is about 48
So.
mining leases. That's why I asked you whether you were conversant with it before we go in. 16 areas, about 48 mining leases, which covers virtually almost all the current mining production that we have in our country. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, that is debatable.
Okay, when you say it's debatable, what is debatable about?
Because if you take the mining leases or concessions, we have only 11 that is in operational, and some are in developing stages. And that
Some
is
are in developing stages, some are in the prospective stages.
Absolutely so.
But all of them are roped in, even before they start the production.
It is right.
Yes, so what is debatable then?
Because we are not assessing the final.
So if someone asks, what is the volume of gold involved in this Agyapa? Having read it, what will you say are the estimated volume?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the specifics before me.
Because it is not provided. So that's why others call it that.
Let's be clear, is it Agyapa on gold or on royalties?
Man, it is Agyapa on royalties.
It's on royalties, but royalties are based on the gold production. Whatever you produce, the royalty portion of it is what we are talking about.
Rightly so, but we have other tax components.
So that's, no, I mean, we are talking about the royalties. Right. So someone will say that you don't even know the volume of gold royalty that you are talking about. It's more or less, that's why some people say that it is too open-ended. Do you agree to that assertion?
Mr. Chairman, doing trend analysis and, in a way mapping out previous production, you could know the quantum of royalties that will be flowing through. But as this house is an, house of record, I cannot speculate. That is why I said I cannot give the specifics. It doesn't mean that it's too vague for us to transact with.
What about the duration? How long is it going to last?
Mr. Chairman, it is also tied in with the lifespan of the lease.
And that's the challenge, because in many of the leases it's until it expires. And when it's not renewed, when you and I know, even most of the time before it expires, they come in for renewal. So it is likely to be more or less like a kind of endless agreement that could take decades. Do you agree or not? You've been vice chair of the Mines and Energy Committee, and you are I want to believe you are much conversant with this in terms of lease and its renewal. And if you tie it to the end time, it could be decades and endless. Do you agree to that assertion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be focusing on the inflows, and if the lifespan will go on and on in perpetuity, I'll be interested to see that.
So you see the challenge where you are entering into an agreement that you do not even know when the sun is going to set on it. Or you don't agree with me? Nobody will be able to tell when the sun will set on this agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I tend to differ on this because when the Agyapa transaction, gets to a level where probably the concession life or the life of the mining lease, seeks to extend, obviously there could be that kind of rearrangement of the agreements.
How do you rearrange? Because in the agreement is not provided for. It is that the lifespan of the lease, which can be renewed. So if it is renewed, you don't, as today, you may not be able to tell if, let's say, you take Newmont, you may not be able to tell when it's going to be renewed, for how long it's going to be renewed. So how will you be able to determine the tail end?
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of agreements that are being arranged to appear before Parliament, and some of these factors are considered.
The reason why I'm saying this is that I heard the chairman is saying that, but for now we know when it's going to end. The sad thing is that the mining leases are different. They have different time of end. And in the agreement, it says that if they expire, it continues. So meaning that you cannot, for now, even tell when it's going to end. Even if you take the last one, and you say that, oh, the last one will expire in 20 years. Before the last one expires, these other ones could have been renewed. That will keep it rolling. And you could have, and in the agreement, if we wanted to have an end or be able to renegotiate, we could have stated that anytime a lease expires, if it's going to be renewed, it will not be part of it. Its royalty will not be part. Then you'll be able to determine that, oh, then in that case, this can run for 40 years and it will end. But the way it's structured, you will not be able to determine that. And these are some of the major concerns that many have. But most importantly, you also know that using that mineral royalties is also going to knock off the possibility of future government using our resources to also procure loan for other challenges that you may not know today. Do you agree to this?
Mr. Chairman, if you disagree, that's my thinking. If you disagree to the effect of using a royalty to leverage, to have some kind of a private arrangement to have your own balance sheet today, then obviously you wouldn't even also agree going forward. But this is only hinged on the royalty flow, and that is what we must take note. And I believe that will cushion the challenge you are envisaging in future. If we are able to do what is right now, there wouldn't be any wrong in future.
Well, how much were we anticipating to get from this?
Mr. Chairman, we're anticipating to have not less than $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
Do you remember how much we gave Get Fund 2 or 3 years ago for education infrastructure?
Mr. Chairman, I cannot give specifics to that.
It was 1.5 billion. We gave 1.5 billion to Get Fund. In the last 3 years, have you checked how many infrastructure that have been brought out of it?
Mr. Chairman, the 1 billion is the minimum, so we could do more.
That's what we are anticipating. And do you also remember, because you've been vice chair of the Mines and Energy, how much we've gotten from our oil exploration in the last 4 years?
Mr. Chairman, I would need to bring my documentation here.
Is it not this? Is it not more than this amount?
Mr. Chairman, I need not to speculate on this.
No, but for sure, you know it's more than the 1 billion. Nominee, I'm asking you know for sure, because if you and I are on the Mines and Energy Committee, it's definitely more than $1 billion in the last 4 years, what we've gotten from our oil revenue.
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't want to speculate.
So specifically, it clearly shows that if it is about the use of resources, many more resources have passed through our hands. That its impact has not been felt by the ordinary Ghanaian to be able to mortgage the royalty stream for a future transaction that you are not very certain of.
Mr. Chairman, it is important as a country for us to be tracking some of this revenue stream. And that is why I'm happy that the royalty is being ring-fenced. And that, one of the advantages is for me and you to track and know the quantum of royalties that we've received from these mining companies. Previously, we are unable to track some of this because we pay directly to the consolidated fund and so on and so forth. But now, we have referenced it for us to enable us to track, and tomorrow you can ask questions yes, we have so much into myth, and what are we used for? So going forward, I think it's
Unfortunately, this is where you go wrong, because when we got oil, this house decided to pass a specific act to be able to track how much of it will even go into a budget, how much of it will go into reserve fund, and all that. Even with that, we are having challenges, and you've been seeing, you and I have seen a number of PIAC reports as members of Mines and Energy Committee. Don't you think that as a country, we need to slow down in our effort to just give away this royalty, looking at our own history of using what has come into our hands and how we've used it?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see it as a giveaway. I see it as a way to also attract non-debt capital, to obviously inject some kind of flesh into the economy of this country.
Mr. Chairman, maybe let me take him away from the Agyapong. There's this land that was demarcated for demonstration farm in the Sola Tuna Kalba district. Going to the ministry, what do you think can be done to reclaim this land and go back to use it for the purpose for which it was earmarked?
Mr. Chairman, I think the Land Act 2020 Act 1036 addresses some of these challenges, and with your kind of approval and support of my minister, I believe we'll use the act to address some of these challenges. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Earlier, you were asked by Honorable Obi about how you were going to assist your minister to educate the citizenry on the new Land Act, so that people will be more conversant with it, so that they do not get into trouble with the law. I didn't really get your answer clearly, how you were going to do that, if you don't mind repeating that.
Right, the import was that the modus operandi could not be well explained here, because I'm now getting to join the ministry, and maybe they have a plan of executing such a suggestion. And when I get there and they have such a plan, I believe I will table my support and my ideas to, in a way, buttress whatever they have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to get the new idea that you may have, that when you get there, not maybe what you go to meet. Supposing the minister calls you to say...
Mr. Chairman, what we need to do is to, in a way, kind of bring this to a local dialect, I mean, in the respective local languages. Get the local radio stations also talking about, and delinking and kind of getting them to a level, appreciable level, where people understand it properly. The renditions are kind of technical, so we'll find ways and means of getting it to level that people will understand. So getting teams in the respective communities, decentralizing it, making sure community radios are properly used, and educating people on will resolve the matter in terms of education, or in terms of letting people understand the Land Act 1036.
Chairman, thank you.
Yes.
Chairman, I'm grateful for the opportunity. The Honorable Duka, congratulations, my good friend.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay, let me start on this note. Two concepts. The EIA concept, environmental impact assessment concept, and the alternate livelihood concept. More often than not, we tend to trivialize the concept of alternate livelihood, especially in the mining communities and what we seek to do with that. And largely we tend to impose what we expect inhabitants of these areas to do instead of mining, i.e. rearing of grass cutter, snails, and the likes. And I'm sure you are very conversant with this. Has this crossed your mind? How relevant this has been? Because we've practiced this for a very long time. And we impose these activities on the people. And really, if you do an assessment, it doesn't impact, or the people don't even have the interest. And yet, because we are part of officialdom, we tend to impose it on the people. What is your assessment of the concepts over the years that we've practiced, and if you think there should be some departure with this concept?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it is true that the support that the communities in the mining areas get from these mining companies sometimes doesn't in any way commensurate the effort that they put out in getting things done illegally. And therefore, if you want to get them out of these illegalities, there is the need to give something that is impactful, something that will get them committed to. Like you rightly mentioned, there have been situations where people call me and say, Honorable, do you know what they came and mined on my land? And what they gave me was to rear grass cutters and some kind of animals. How do I, live my life on this? So sometimes, if you are addressing some of these issues, it is important for us to measurably give out something that the people will really appreciate. And I will always say that, yes, mining is something that we need to decriminalize it. Decriminalize it in the sense that it's something that can generate more revenue into this country. And how do we formalize it? How do we find a national database of where the mineable areas, where we can resource them with mining machines, where we can train them technologically and in all other aspects to meet international standards? These are areas that you can really commit people to, because they were into illegal mining. How do you move them back to the legal aspect? Sometimes when we embark on certain modalities where the people themselves are not even informed of the processes. So it's just like moving out market women from a design place to where you in future want to build a market for them. You need to obviously provide them with an available plot of land. So in this sense, you create your database, you get a concession, you move them to the concession, and you support them to mine legally. So going forward, that must be. And alternatively, the education and free secondary school education concept has also helped, because it has moved a lot of people into the area of education. They are now understanding the need for us to protect the future of this country. And the government has done well in that regard, in ensuring that people in the mining communities get well educated and understand the concept, the legal concept of mining. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honorable nominee, you are very conversant with mining generally and that industry. Are there any models across the world, or maybe we should just limit ourselves to Africa, relative alternative livelihood concept? Are you conversant with any model in Africa that Ghana can look up to or take a cue from?
Mr. Chairman, we can look at the model of Norway and that of South Africa, where the indigenous are supported immensely in mining, and they are put into conscious training and are supported with mining implements. And these are well planned in Norway and that of South Africa, and we can take a cue from their modus operandi in terms of mining. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable, the regime of the conduct of EIA, environmental impact assessment, I'm sure you are up to speed with the relevance of this. Almost every significant project we have to embark on, it had to be prefaced with EIA report. Now, I am aware the EPA often sublets this. Significance as it is, they often sublet it to individuals, to conductors. If you talk to the EPA, they say it's because of constraints of capacity. What do you think we should do, or what, in your estimation, can we do as a country to strengthen the EPA, because they have the professional background, to be able to conduct such functions which are so important, rather than subletting it to third parties?
Yes, I agree perfectly with you that EPA must be beefed up, and not only EPA. I think that of the Minerals Commission must also be supported, and the Forestry Commission. These are agencies that, in a way, supervise some of these operations. For example, if you take the trend of planned exploration site, Ghana has moved from a very high position to the 4th position. Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso taking over the exploration position that we have, because of there are one emerging markets in terms of mining. If you take Cote d'Ivoire, emerging market, Burkina Faso, emerging market, and large-scale concessionaires are calling for the removal of VAT on exploration and so on and so forth. Yes, we have a comprehensive legislative framework here. The confidence is high, the future, the prospect is high, and obviously the EPA arrangement is also good for us to go with. What we need to do is to, one, beef up the EPA, beef up Forestry Commission, and that of the Minerals Commission. And I believe the mining sector will be the key to this economy.
Honorable, the Afforestation Project, and we recently launched the Green Ghana Project, which
rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. It's not the first of its kind. We've had it before. The question of sustainability comes up, and it's a reasonable deduction for anybody to draw. Do you think we should have a defined source of funding to fund this project? Because previously, I'm aware we've partnered, our development partners, the World Bank, for instance, have been supporting us. But it's not been sustainable as it should. What do we seek to do differently this time?
This time around, Mr. Chairman, the education has really sunk. I believe each and everyone has been involved. We recently had a dialogue. The minister himself, Honorable Samuel Abu-Janapo, led a team to have a bipartisan dialogue at the International Conference Center. Another one was also held in Kumasi, where His Majesty Otunfuo was the guest of honor. Chiefs, National House of Chiefs, all stakeholders, key people in this country have been contacted, including Yana, where I had the opportunity to be sent by the minister to also inform him about the planting processes. And the chief imam himself has also committed to, yes, the call to ensure that we nurture what we plant is very important. And using your platform, such a platform, to educate people is also important. And we'll continue to conscientize people, continue to educate people as the need for us to nurture what we plant. I think it must be a household kind of call in all the villages, in all the communities, the need for each and every Ghanaian to plant periodically. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable, at the last COP, if I have your attention, Honorable, at the last COP, I believe was held in the Spain Conference of Parties. At the last COP, the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, was came out strongly, especially regarding developing countries as ours. And it has always remained a challenge, regardless of the fact that we do less emission compared to developed jurisdiction. And I know you understand these things, the concept very well. What knowledge are you bringing on board to help your minister to support Ghana in our forward march in meeting the targets of our NDCs as a country?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the NDC is very comprehensive in terms of, and it's tied in the Minamata Convention, the treaty that was, in 2013, but came into effect in 2017. It also borders on mercury emission and its prevention and so on and so forth. So we are really mindful of some of these things, and with your permission and with your approval, I'll support my minister to go by the prospect of the NDC.
Honorable, let me conclude on this note. The carbon trade, we are positioned well to buy into it. What are you going to do to facilitate Ghana becoming a harvester or as a key player in the carbon trade? And then finally, what ideas are you bringing on board to control sand winning? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I know the honorable member is passionate about sand winning, and I have been monitoring his statement on sand winning. And I indicated earlier that with approval of this House, I will support my minister to structure and find solutions to the sand winning menace that we have in the country. I know also that we are committed to all the treaties of this country and the UN convention, whatever convention that we have. And my minister is a lawyer of good standing, and obviously he is determined to push the mining industry forward. And with your support, lands and natural resources will be a new page that we all admire in the future.
They have a question. My brother, I greet you well.
I greet you well, my brother.
You have dumping Methodist. Is that a sin dumping? Yeah, I want to.
Mr. Chairman, is wasa dumping.
So, if you look at your CV, you started as a teacher. You've done BA accounting, and you moved into oil and gas. So you've really done some journey. And now, after becoming an MC for Takwa, you went through primaries, you couldn't survive, you went through elections, and MP, Deputy Minister. Having regard to the challenges you faced in your last election, how do you hope to cope with the challenges of your new office?
Mr. Chairman, it's a Herculean task, though, but with God, all things are possible. We're trying to put all measures in place to ensure that we work tirelessly to support our people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I hope you've had discussions with friends who have occupied that deputy ministerial position before. Have you?
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman.
And what have they told you?
Mr. Chairman, putting the experiences on a pedestal, I believe they are in diverse. And I would once here, but it's a lesson to get to know. So I have taken a cue, and with all humility, will be with my minister, who is a very noble person and ready to support at all times.
My brother, congratulations. I wish you well. You've gone through what it takes to square your conduct and level your steps. So keep going.
Well noted.
Honorable nominee, I just have one question for clarification. The Honorable Deputy Ranking Member was asking you questions. He posed a question relating to this House or Parliament approving 1.5 billion for GET Fund. And he asked you whether how many projects have been done in respect of that. Are you aware that 700 million has so far been disbursed and not 1.5 million?
Rightly so, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, and I'm aware that GET Fund is building a science school in my constituency, in Swahili specifically.
Very well. That's the only question I wish to ask you. But thank you for attending upon the House to answer questions. You will hear from us later, but for now you're discharged.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm so grateful for the audience.
Very well. Now we'll take the last nominee.
Please administer the oath.
I
I, Honorable Tina Giftina Ayele Mensa,
swear by Almighty God
swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
touching the